Before we get into the video, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Skillshare.
Hey. The podcast is ready.
Okay, that was good.
It wasn't bad.
I think that's 2 days of getting
We've had better.
Of hitting it on the mark. Well,
We've had better.
I guess so. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Happy halfway there day.
Oh, it's Wednesday. Halfway there. To what?
To something of a weekend.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
We're halfway through this standard, what some people consider a work week.
Yeah.
But most people like us are probably sitting at home every day and just kind of like the days start to merge and blend together. I saw somebody post on Twitter today that was like, how is it that March felt like it was 10 years long and April feels like it's been a couple seconds? And how is it that we've collectively all experienced the same thing?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's true. I can't believe we're like in the final days. We only got, 1 day left after this of April, and then we're in May.
Wait.
There's only 30 days in April.
What's today's date?
Wait. No, that's
What is
wrong.
today?
Today's the 29th.
Is it?
Today's the 29th of April, yeah. So we've got tomorrow, and then Friday is May 1st. Friday is May 1st. Yeah, I did. I know. We've been in this garage for how long? To be completely honest, I can't remember if we started. No, it was March. Okay. Because February was my brother's birthday, so I did go to San Diego for that. So we started this in March.
Yeah.
So
I remember, Malika and I went to Hawaii for our, we went to Hawaii for Valentine's Day.
That's right.
And, I mean, things were kicking off at that point, though, because
while
while we were in Maui, there was a confirmed case of COVID in Maui.
Oh, shit.
And people were kind of like,
Yeah.
And we were worried, like, okay, is there going to be some, like, it's funny. The things we were worried about would only have happened if our country had its shit together.
Yeah.
Because, like, okay, we were just in Maui. Are we going to get off the plane in L.A. and have to be, like, screened and make sure that we're not sick?
Yeah.
Of course that didn't happen. And, of course, nobody ever followed up with this. But it's like, that's what we were worried about at the time because, we were like, whoever that was probably someone who was traveling and went to the airport just like we were.
Right.
So, But, hey, I guess it's the end of April. Shit. Wow. My 36th birthday is in, like, 13 days then.
Happy birthday.
I don't even know, man.
Almost to you.
Wow.
And
that's weird.
Mine's almost exactly a month after yours. On the
Damn,
14th.
dude. Wait,
Damn, dude.
could we possibly be doing our, like, supposed trip in that time?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
That would be wild.
That would be wild.
So I know we brought it up on one stream, but we've been talking behind the scenes and trying to figure out logistically because we've been trapped in this garage for so long. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about possibly doing a show after this lifts, when the California thing lifts and most of the country is trying to slowly reopen.
Yeah.
We've talked about renting an RV and taking the entire crew on a countrywide trip.
Yeah.
Call it the new normal. An IRL stream every day from different cities around America.
Yeah.
And kind of make it like you can still travel and still have a vacation this summer. Mm-hmm. Here's how, though. And also possibly talking to business owners around the country about, like, how are you doing? I thought it would also be really cool.
I hope Emily's not watching. I haven't talked to her about this yet.
Oh, shit.
I might be gone for a while.
She was invited.
She got a job, Zach.
Whatever.
I mean, I guess that's true. If she's not having to go back to the office, then I guess she could come along.
But we've been talking about it. We're trying to figure it out logistically. And we want to make it happen. Because I think for us, for one, we feel very claustrophobic and would love to get out and see the world. We don't really feel comfortable getting on planes and going to airports.
Yeah, definitely not there right now, for sure.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while before I've talked about this a lot, but I was supposed to go on a European trip with my family. And like, even though, the country hasn't announced that they're letting people back in, but they're internally starting to lift some of their restrictions and stuff. But like, there's no way in June I'd be getting on an airline to go fly somewhere unless it was something that was work related and it was like necessary. Otherwise, like, yeah, I'm not for my own like leisure. I'm not going to get on a plane unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different
we
story.
don't really want to. We want to be able to travel. We love travel here at HyperRPG. I think travel is very important.
Yeah.
But I am most curious right now about how this is affecting the whole country.
Yeah.
And, I think it would be cool to show that you can travel safely. You can be conscious of it.
Yeah.
You can avoid groups of people and crowds to do so. And there's a lot to see across the country.
Yeah.
I think we've been talking about it, though, and how we'd probably have to plan out our trip around major highways to stay within cell signal range most of the trip. But we also were like, maybe it's like we drive a certain amount of hours every morning, and then by midday we're at a place where there's signal and we can stream from there. But we're looking into it. We're discussing a lot of things about, because nothing will be the same.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Things will be different regardless.
And like we said, until there's a vaccine and people feel really comfortable, we don't fully know how we're going to do what we used to do a year ago as a company. So we have to adapt too.
Yeah.
And we haven't been able to necessarily figure that out yet.
Yeah.
So
this is an interesting comment from Mortis Steele, who says, just to know, not sure what it's like in the U.S. itself, but here in the U.K., we rarely, if ever, get to see much of the U.S. outside Los Angeles and New York City.
Which is true. Yeah.
I would say like next in line would maybe be like Chicago and Texas or Florida or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even then.
And they don't see it.
Yeah.
They hear about it.
They hear about it.
And I remember talking to a friend in France once. It was just like, it's New York, L.A., and Texas. And Texas takes up the whole middle of the country, right?
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being able to go even to states like there's a lot of United States I have not been to.
Same.
That I would love to see. Washington State is a huge like bucket list item that I really want to do. I'm supposed to go in August for a bachelor party. I don't know. We'll see.
Now the original, like we've been looking at different options and different ideas. We had talked about doing west to east.
Yeah.
And then some of these RV companies are like, hey, you can take these into Canada, but we don't really know how border stuff's going to be.
Yeah,
because I feel like we'll be able to travel state to state, but I don't feel like country borders are, even by this summer.
Maybe
really
Canada will be like, never mind, y'all, stay in your state.
Yeah. So we don't really know how that's going to work. And I don't want to act like any of this is set in stone.
Yeah.
We're just like doing a lot of talking internally about when these things start to lift, how do we get out, see the world, but do what we do well, which I think is connect people, talk to people. We're really good at live streaming. I think we could do some really cool stuff from the road and educate people while, doing something good for us too.
Yeah.
I think we need it. We've been stuck in this garage.
Decker and She says, Alaska's bigger. Don't forget us. I actually really want to go to Alaska. There is the one final Blockbuster that's open in Alaska, and it would be kind of cool to visit it before it closes forever.
Yeah.
Please don't type into the chat room that it's closing. I will be so sad.
I understand the irony of like, oh, we're trapped in a garage. Now let's get in an RV. But the way we travel, like, I know, one of the things I was thinking about is if we were going to do this, I would make sure that every person had bikes. And I think it would be like if we stop in a city, we bike up and we ride around.
All right, never mind. It's in Oregon, so I guess we have to go to Oregon.
Well, that's easy. So, I think it would be really cool. And open to ideas. We're in discussion phases right now. We have a lot of really cool opportunities coming up at HyperRPG, and we're kind of thinking about what has changed. Yeah. And for us, it's like, well, cons aren't happening this summer, and if they do, we probably won't go to them. So most of our travel that we do every year is for cons, and that's where we kind of get out and we see people from the other parts of the country who come in and all that kind of stuff. And if we're not doing that, we know that that's not going to happen, and that's not going to be these like things that kind of break up. It also makes us realize if we were going to ever do a trip, it would kind of have to be this summer, because next summer, if things go back to modus operandi and we're just back to normal, we're never going to have the time to do this. Ever.
No.
Ever.
No.
We will never have the time to do this.
At least for sure not as a group together.
No. I feel like it's the only time we could ever, as a group, be like, okay, things aren't normal yet.
Yeah.
Very clearly, nobody has a set schedule yet. Things are kind of up in the air. I don't know if we'd ever have another opportunity to do something like that. So it's being discussed. Sure. We'd like to try, But it's
Hyper Road Power Go.
Yeah, it's a lot of logistics to figure it all out and see if it's even possible.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I like we would still have to get some. I guess actually I don't know how that would work. I guess we'd have to figure that out. But like we still have to get things done on the road and figuring all that out of like how we would do that and all that sort of stuff. But
there's a lot to figure out.
There's a lot.
But somebody asked in the chat if Gen Con is announced that it's canceled. No, but we don't feel comfortable. Like, I'm just going to be real with y'all. I got that email from PAX that was like, don't worry, we're still having PAX. I'm like, I don't fucking care. I'm not going. I don't feel comfortable. I don't buy into this idea of herd immunity and all that bullshit, like until this stuff is like on lockdown. I don't feel comfortable. And I don't want to be responsible making anyone else sick. So I'm not comfortable with cons this year. I think like Adam with movies, my standpoint on cons is like,
I mean, I have the same standpoint on cons too. Even if Comic-Con were to still happen, I'm like, I'll go down to San Diego, get a California burrito, but I'm not going to San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, every time I go to a con, I get sick already. Yeah. This already happens.
Con crud is not
I come back from every con crazy sick. I don't want to come back from a con sick and be like, shit.
Yeah. Oh, no.
What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so for us personally, I don't think we as a company are comfortable, which is huge. Because if Gen Con does happen and we're not involved, that's huge because Gen Con's a big deal for us. It's a big deal from a financial standpoint to an exposure standpoint, but the safety of our employees. And that's the other thing, too. Like, if we go, it's like Malika said, as a company, we're now liable for everyone who works for us.
Yeah.
Like everyone who's a host here, everyone who's an employee, now we're liable for their health. That's when shit gets a little wonky, too. It's like at a certain point, it's not so much about how much I'm comfortable. It's as a company, do we want to be responsible for everyone who works for us, health and safety?
Right.
And we should be. We should be. And that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, ladies and jelly beans. Also, today, changing up the schedule just a little bit.
It's Malika Appreciation Day.
That's right.
That's what I'm calling it. It's Malika Appreciation Day. Us two idiots, might be live on camera right now, but right after this, Malika's going to have her bow buns, and she's going to play some Final Fantasy VII, and then at 6 p.m. she's going to watch some Booksmart with us.
Yeah.
It's Malika Appreciation Day, and I'm just going to be real with y'all. Y'all don't show Malika enough respect. And it bothers her. And she would probably be upset with me for telling you this. But we notice it. We notice it in our numbers. I'm going to call you all out right now. We as a company have made a lot of choices to try to put the right voices in front of the camera, the right people in power. And our community outwardly supports this. Outwardly, on social media, on Discord, things like that, they will applaud these things and they will support them. But in reality, on numbers, we get these analytics back. We see them. We see that Malika, when she's the host, makes less tips average, gets less percentage of viewers average. And this isn't just Malika. This is every female host on our channel. So I want people to stop congratulating themselves as an audience and as a group and a community for how good they feel that we're putting female voices forward and we're putting underrepresented people forward, but then tuning out and turning their backs on that kind of content. It's one thing to say that you support it. It's another to fucking show up. And we get the analytics back, and we have to make hard choices. Numbers don't lie. And it's so hard for us. And to me, Rat Queens is always the best example. Yeah. When we analytically look at a show like Rat Queens, we're like, we announce we're doing that. We get more social media engagement and public outcry and support from our community and community around it about that show. Okay? It comes out. It has the lowest number of engagement and viewers of any RPG of that size and or budget that we've ever done. And we wanted to let it go because we believed in that project completely, and we believed in Emily completely and every other woman on that show. And we wanted to support it with the full capacity of HyperRPG. But numbers don't lie. And it's so weird as a creator and a producer to kind of dive into these things and see how much people will outwardly support an idea and outwardly support a concept, but then inwardly quietly just dissipate and you know, like, it's so wild to me. And I know if we're seeing that, other people see that too, which is why in the long run you see people who are tight on money being like, I don't know, when we did this thing with this white dude, we got this percentage of more viewers. And we got this percentage more income. And for that shit to start changing, for that shit to start actually changing the way media is done and the way we start putting things forward, people got to show up. You got to you got to represent. If you want actual change, you got to fucking represent. I know this is a long way to go from Malika's going to be playing Final Fantasy later today, which is just her sitting there playing a video game. We don't expect that to do well. We want Malika to have fun. But from an aspect of respect and actual like statistics that we see here, I'm excited for the TTRPG community, the nerd community, to put their money where their mouth is and to start actually representing and showing up instead of just talking about showing up. And that's what we've seen in our numbers, and it drives us mad. Yeah. It drives us absolutely mad. And we're going to keep doing it. We're not going to, like, shift course. We're going to keep doing it. But we get those numbers back. We see them. And we're just like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
Why? Before we continue, I want to give a huge shout-out to our sponsor, Skillshare. Yes, that's right. Skillshare is back again. They have another deal for the Thumper community. Now, I know I've talked at length how much I've really enjoyed Skillshare, and I do think that because we are currently living in such unprecedented times, we don't know what's going to happen next month, let alone what's going to happen next week. So I think now's the perfect time to jump on the platform and to learn something new. I, as someone who's a visual effects veteran, I've really enjoyed diving even deeper into things like Premiere, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects. I'm now taking on DaVinci Resolve, so color correcting will look better on this channel, hopefully. Some of the other creators who I've also enjoyed, somebody like Thomas Frank, who I'm learning real productivity, how to build habits that last. What is time right now? What does time even mean during these times? We need creators like Thomas Frank to help us streamline our day, to help us organize our day so we can make it as productive as possible without losing sight of what our goals are. I've also really enjoyed Christopher Rhodes, aka YC Imaging, on YouTube. I followed him over to Skillshare as well. He teaches you how to be as productive and as resourceful as possible without breaking the bank. And I think if you want to be a creator right now on the internet, that is something that is key and critical. So if any of this interests you and you want to take on something new and maybe break that anxiety and break that stress and just let creativity wash over you and maybe be able to find a way to express those frustrations on camera, then I highly recommend you check out the link down in the description where you can get 2 months of premium Skillshare for free. That's right, Skillshare is hooking it up, 2 months premium for free. Outside of that, you're more than welcome to join Skillshare for less than $10 a month. I highly recommend you take advantage of this Thumper, fam. Please go down in the description, check it out. You got nothing to lose just by clicking the link, giving it a read through, and I promise there will be something there for you that will fuel and spark that creative soul in you. Let's get back to the video. You want to kind of talk about this crazy shit show of a topic?
I don't know what that is, so please enlighten me.
I'm sure everybody at this point has seen that AMC and Universal are duking it out.
Oh, right.
Duking it out.
Right.
There's a lot of controversy right now because AMC had, or I should say Universal, they broke the traditional 90-day theatrical window to drop Trolls World Tour on PVOD early, which is Premiere Video on Demand, is what they're calling it. So they broke the 90-day window. So it technically had a same-day theatrical, same-day video release, and AMC was not very happy about that.
Yeah.
Most of the movies that have been put on this Premiere VOD system have been movies that were already had already come out, or they had kind of like renegotiated and reworked sort of their release schedule. We also know that Warner Brothers is obviously releasing the Scooby-Doo movie early as well, or it's not early. It's going directly into this like Premiere Video on Demand system. And there's been a lot of back and forth right now between AMC and Universal. AMC basically saying that Universal has taken advantage of the fact that everybody is at home to justify them breaking the theatrical window to put this movie out early. Universal is coming back and saying like, well, we wanted to put it out because everybody is at home right now, and we wanted to be able to provide some form of entertainment for our audiences.
Makes sense.
And if we already have a movie that's done, why not put it in the home? So I feel like it's been kind of going back and forth for a while, and I think audiences are also kind of split on this because I think there's a lot of us who like we don't want to experience Black Widow at home on a TV screen. We don't want to experience a Tenet on a TV screen, or Wonder Woman, or some of the other Universal movies that are coming out. You know, they have the Jurassic World series that's coming out. They have the Fast and the Furious movies that are coming out. They have more Minions movies that are coming out. They don't necessarily want to experience those things exclusively at home. They want to also be able to have the option to go theatrical. Universal has been saying that part of the thing that they're looking at is actually releasing them both theatrically and at home simultaneously. Obviously, a company like AMC and Regal, to them, that signals a big red flag because that's potentially taking away huge business from them. I don't really know where I personally fall on this just yet.
I know where I fall. AMC is reaching.
Yeah.
I think they're reaching. And now they got Regal involved too. And I'm just like, I understand movie theaters are scared right now, but this doesn't help you because less movies are coming out this year. And if you start feuding with those companies that are even putting movies out this year to say like, oh, well, we won't show your movies. It's like, I'm pretty sure the ones hurting here are you, AMC, and you're going to need every fucking movie you can get when you reopen your theaters. You're going to need every one of them because every major blockbuster this year has moved back.
Yeah.
So why are you picking fights with these studios? You are putting yourself in a situation to have even less options for people who might go to the movies. And in regards to, you know, Universal, it's like, duh. You close down your theaters, AMC. You might even go bankrupt.
There's literally an AMC theater
at Universal City Walk.
Yeah.
Oh, tense. But what's Universal supposed to do? And all these other companies. It's Trolls. It's not a Marvel movie.
Right.
It's not, you know, so it's like, release it. It's done. Release it. I find that to me is movie theaters just refusing to accept that the future is different.
Yeah.
And you have to adapt. You have to find a way to make your business strategies work. Otherwise, you're going to get fucking left behind. And, you know, in a lot of ways, thankfully, we have things like on demand now, you know, to help us get through all this. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Technology has advanced. We even have this ability to beam movies that could have been released in movie theaters directly into people's homes, despite the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I understand that AMC is in panic mode right now, but at the same time, picking fights with the people who would directly give you stuff is probably not a smart move on their part. It just seems really short-sighted.
I think the one thing that I definitely agree with, and Working Class Hero brought this up as well, is Universal did this without having a discussion with NATO or anybody from theatrical distribution about this change. They kind of just did it. And I think the theaters are also worried that this is going to sort of set a precedent that studios don't have to in any way, shape, or form negotiate these sorts of things with theatrical distributors. That, I think, is where part of the problem lies. I think if movie studios just kind of start coming out and they're saying like, well, we're going to put this movie on PVOD and this movie theatrically and this here and this there, and without any, with already having a theatrical release in play and not consulting these other distribution avenues, then I do think that there is a conversation to be had by theater owners of like, well, if we already had a deal in place that we were going to show your movie on 6,000 of our screens, and you're now telling us that you're going to release this simultaneously on digital, there's other movies we could have put in place of that, because we know we're not going to get as much business.
But in regards to Universal standpoint is if you had an agreement that said we're going to release this in 6,000 theaters, but then 0 theaters are open, deal void, you know, fucking null and void.
I mean, I think
it's a pandemic.
I think at that point, you know, you're kind of just like grasping at straws, because then, you know, the theaters could come back and say like, well, you could have delayed your release. And then it's like, well, why would we delay our release if we don't know when your theaters are going to open and we don't know like when they will be open? You know, so I think it's like a constant back and forth. I personally think that we all know nowadays what movies do well in theaters and what movies don't.
Yeah.
I don't think Trolls had a good chance of doing well theatrically. I know that it made I think it made about 320 to 350 million worldwide. So that's, and it was about 150 some odd million dollars domestically. But if they're making $100 million off of it going straight to people's houses through PVOD, why would you go theatrical?
Yeah.
You're probably going to end up making more money on the back end if you just push it out yourself. Granted, that does mean that you're going to have to find a distributor to put it through, whether it's something like Amazon or Netflix or whatever, because I currently don't think that Universal has their own a streaming service. That could change in a few years. They might come out with something, but yeah, I don't know. I think movie studios need to, going forward, reanalyze what movies that they want to devote to the theatrical experience. It makes perfect sense to me that a Star Wars movie, a Marvel movie, a DC movie, a Fast and the Furious movie, a franchise film that's of that scale can go into a theatrical run and do really well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I do feel like movie theaters have to start reevaluating.
Oh, Peacock. That's NBC Universal.
Mm-hmm. I think people have to start reevaluating how movie theaters survive in the future, because you're right. That's the movies people want to go to. And we might like to go see some indie films.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
We're in a smaller category.
I think some creators prefer the new, SVOD straight to the viewer option because more eyes see it.
Yeah.
A lot of directors have gone on shows and things like that now and said maybe we got paid less overall, but more people saw the movie because it was on this service, because it went to Netflix, because it went to Amazon. It got in front of more people's eyes and had a bigger social impact by doing so than if it had just sat in a theater somewhere with only a couple people seeing it.
I think Annihilation is a pretty good example. When that came out a couple years ago, it came out theatrically in U.S., but it debuted on Netflix in the U.K. and probably other international territories. I don't know how wide of a distribution it had internationally on streaming services, but I think I would be really interested to know how it did on streaming versus how it did theatrically in the U.S. or domestic.
And I don't know if that included Canada. I'm not talking about things that are doing both. I'm talking about movies now that are just people are fuck it, let's just do it on a digital service.
Yeah.
I think Extraction is a great example of that.
That movie would have not done well in theaters.
Right. But as an action movie on Netflix, it's one of the best action movies on Netflix right now. And it's great in that format. It's a good action flick. It would have done really well in the 90s in theaters. Yeah. But now? No. Hell no.
Yeah.
I think they made the right call.
Whew. Yeah, it's kind of tricky because I have to sometimes remove myself from I have to remove myself from my own self when I think about these conversations, because I have to remember that I'm a single person who has an AMC A-list pass, so I can go to the movies anytime I want, any day of the week. I don't really have to think about it. It's just something I do. But then I think about my family, for example, my aunt, my uncle, they have 3 kids. They go to the movies, but then they have to find a sitter for their little one who's just turned, he's a year and a half. So there's a lot more steps for them to be able to go to the movies. Then you get there, you buy the tickets, you buy the snacks and all that shit. It adds up. If you're a family of 5 at home, yeah, it might cost you $20 to $25 to rent it, but now 5 people get to watch it as opposed to 1, and you just kind of have your own snacks at home. You spend a lot less money, basically, is what I'm getting at. But for me, it's easy for me to say oh yeah, I'm going to go to the theater, I'm just going to hop over and watch a movie. When I go, I may not necessarily always get a popcorn and a drink, so it's I'm not spending the additional $20 for food and snacks, whereas for other people it's different. So I think you're right, though. I think there is going to have to be, I think studios are going to have to work with theaters to sort of reevaluate what stuff goes into a theater. And it's not about theaters just running things exclusively or it's not about exclusivity, because at some point those movies will come out on a video on demand service no matter what.
Yeah, eventually.
Or they'll come out on DVD and Blu-ray no matter what. So I think if you really want to see Avengers, the new Avengers movie or whatever, even Black Widow, yeah, put that out in theaters for 3 months or however long the theatrical run lasts, and then wait 3 to 4 months to put it out on a video on demand service. And then after that, put it on Blu-ray or whatever. I think those windows are going to continue to shrink anyway. Now it's 90 days. I remember back in the fucking 90s, you'd have to wait up to 6 months for something to show up on a VHS or a Blu-ray. So the window is getting smaller.
Yep.
3 months goes by so incredibly fast. You're not going to have to wait that much longer to get it. But I'm someone, no matter what, even if they did decide down the road that we're just going to put Black Widow on Disney Plus at the same time as we release it theatrically, I'm definitely going to the theater to see it first. And I know that's going to change for every single person. Not everyone is going to have that same enthusiasm to go to the movies to see something like that. But I think I don't know what the statistic would be, but I imagine that if there's a chance to see something in the theater and it's a hugely anticipated movie, most people will see it theatrically first. Like, are you really going to watch Tenet on HBO Max if it were to come out the same day as it came out theatrically? I would figure that more people would want to go see it in the theaters.
I disagree.
You think so?
I disagree.
Really?
I think that a lot of people around the country.
But I'm talking about like movie fans. I'm not talking about average Joe.
But I'm talking about average Joes are what make up the money made, though. I think average Joes are the reason Transformers continues being made because it makes so much fucking money. You know what I mean? Like, average Joes are the ones that actually make up the market. Yeah, moviegoers, great. Good reviews, great. You know, whatever. I think Tenet, if it dropped on HBO Max, I think a large portion of even our audience would be like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to watch it right now. And if they like it, they might go see it in the theater later. But I think a lot of people would immediately just be like, fuck yeah, I've been waiting for this movie. Let's do it. Let's watch it. I think we're unique. I think we're very unique. We live right next to a theater. We go all the time. We love movies in that regard. And I know there are some people in our audience like that as well, but then I think about people like my parents. You know, the closest movie theater is 30 miles away. That's an event, you know? That's an event. And there's no pre-registered seating. You know, you got to get there early and wait in line if it's a movie that's a big release. You know, not all these theaters are like that. You know, I think a large part of the country would just be like, fuck it, yeah, just watch it online.
Yeah. Oof. I could never. It's painful. Just the thought of it, I'm just like, I'm dying inside slowly.
Yeah.
I get it, though. You know, it's like it really just depends on the person.
Now, I think where we're talking the big difference, though, is whether or not it's being released as a purchase VOD for $20 or going to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just dropping on Netflix or HBO Max or something like that, and you already have access to these subscriptions or Amazon Prime.
I think for sure. I don't think we'll live in a world where Tenet drops on HBO Max for free.
Right. So what I
don't think that's going to be the case.
If it was that like $20 rental versus going to the movies,
I think it's always going to be that.
Then it may be go to the movies. But if you're talking about just hitting a streaming service,
I mean, Jesus, I could never imagine. I personally can't imagine that HBO Max. Sorry. I can't imagine living in a world where Warner Brothers puts Tenet, a brand new movie, on HBO Max for free.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. How the fuck do you recuperate your costs?
Right.
That's not going to happen. So I guess I should have clarified that by saying, like, do you pay $20 to go see it in a theater, or do you pay $20 to watch it on your television?
Yeah.
And again, you don't own it. It's for a 24. I think these new PVODs that came out, like Bloodshot and all that, I think it was 24 hours you had it.
For rental.
Yeah. So I guess that to me is going to be the big question of like where we stand on that.
I mean, you say all this, but I find it really interesting that, you know, when you think about shows like the new Marvel shows that are coming out on Disney Plus, the overall budget for each show is the same as an indie film. You know?
I've heard that those Marvel TV shows are really expensive.
Yeah, it's the same as a fucking indie film. Yeah. So it's like the line's starting to get really blurry.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Avengers is a big difference, but when you start looking at other like mid-range kind of movies, budget-wise, some of these shows that are going direct are higher budget even. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts on that, though, because I think we have a lot of people in our audience who are like us, that they either have a movie pass to a certain theater and they're a singular person, so they go often, or they're a family and they have to pay for more than one ticket. Maybe they're paying for 2 or 3. For me personally, it's been a really good investment to have A-List. And now that they have that thing where you can do like a group.
Hold on.
What?
Jeff Wool says, yeah, but they in L.A. are paying $10 for a ticket.
What the fuck?
Where do you watch a movie in L.A. for $10?
The IMAX theater right next to us is $25 for a ticket.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's why we bought an A-List pass, because it was cheaper.
Yeah. I don't think A-List is as valuable to people in the Midwest as it is to us in L.A. In L.A., A-List is choice.
Yeah.
You go to a movie once a month, it pays itself.
Yeah. And that's not to say you can find theaters in L.A. that the tickets are under $10, but the movie's been out for 4 months.
It's usually the old movies.
Yeah. Like if you were to go now, the movies that those theaters have is stuff from Thanksgiving and Christmas, not new stuff. Some theaters will have a what do they call it? like a discounted they have like a discounted matinee day. Yep. Like I know AMC on Tuesdays has like $7 all day or something like that. But on average, no. The movie tickets are at minimum, I would say like $18.
Yeah, usually.
If you want to see it in IMAX, it's like $25 to go see it over here.
Yeah, it's expensive.
So yeah, and granted that's not all markets.
Oh man, Rob Vegas says it's $6 for regular and $9 for IMAX. Oh my god.
Hey, when we you know what? God. If we do this road trip,
dude,
we gotta hop around.
We gotta hit theaters around the country. Be like, whoa,
dude. Last time I saw a movie for $9, I think I was in high school.
It's interesting to see how different parts of the country change costs for things like movies, where things like a can of soda is going to cost you the same, kind of around the country.
It's so
but
crazy.
a movie theater ticket is vastly different.
Oh, my God. I mean, I think that's why when a lot of people look at the pricing for something like Disneyland, they're like, Jesus Christ. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that's like that's like buying 4 movie tickets. And people are just like mind blown when you say that. But yeah, so I mean, again, it varies by market. So I mean, again, I think that also does beg the question of like, if a movie's dropping on HBO Max and it's $20 regardless of where you live in the country.
Angelo Blazemont says, I've never seen a movie for more than $6.
Fuck.
What is that life? I could live in it.
Oh, man.
No, I don't have $6.
Yeah, I mean, that's honest. That is truly the reason why we went with AMC A-List, because we love going to see movies in IMAX, and it made no sense for us to continue paying $25 every time when we can just buy A-List for $25, and then we have access to literally every movie. Up to 3 times a week. Yeah.
Should we cancel our A-List?
It's on pause.
It's on pause right now? Okay.
They said it's on pause, so if you've been getting charged for it, then you should probably look into that.
I don't know.
I have not been getting charged for it.
I'll have to ask Malika. I don't have a bank account. It all goes through her.
Yeah. And like so like certain theaters will have deals for less than that, but for the majority of the time, like if you want to go watch an IMAX movie, you're not paying $6 or $9, which goddamn, I wish.
Do you want to talk at all about the updated requirements for the Oscars?
Yes.
Was that one of your topics?
It is one of my topics.
Of course. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. I'm sorry.
Hey, man, if you're excited about it,
I'm curious. I'm excited to talk about it because I want you to tell me what the news is, because I've been too busy with other things.
Yeah.
So what's up?
I didn't get a chance to break it down, but I will sort of go through what's been talked about. So the Academy's Board of Governors, they had a Zoom call to sort of talk about like, okay, now that all these movies have kind of been shifting around and a lot of them have been shifting their release dates, what does that mean for us next year when we do the Academy Awards? They will still be having the 93rd Academy Awards ceremony.
Interesting.
It will be taking place on February 28th. It'll be the 93rd, I think, Academy Awards. And some of the things that they did discuss was, in order for films to qualify, and this is this season until further notice, films can qualify for the competition without screening for at least 1 week in a Los Angeles area theater, the longest standing barrier for entry. After all movie theaters in LA have been closed, obviously. Films that were scheduled for theatrical release that meet the other eligibility requirements and that are made available for Academy members to view on the organization's members-only streaming service, Academy Screening Room, within 60 days of being available on a publicly available streamer or VOD, will be in the running. This covers any and all picks that scrap their theatrical releases due to coronavirus crisis in favor of other methods of reaching consumers, such as Trolls World Tour. Let's see, what else do they say?
What will be interesting
is
to see if anyone tries to game that system at the end of the year.
That's true.
And is
like, because there's a lot of movies that still have not come out yet.
They haven't come out, and it'll be interesting to see if they go, okay, there might be less competition this year. Let's release our film to the Academy within the 60-day window and have it drop in theater, even though it's still not coming out in theaters technically until the next year. Like, somebody might try to play that system to be like, let's get in the running to get our like marketing out basically through the Academy, even though the movie's not dropping until around or after the Academy Awards.
Right.
That'd be interesting.
A couple other things that they did talk about. was they're going to be taking 2 categories and putting them into one. Best sound editing and best sound mixing will become best sound, which I think is so stupid, because I think sound, again, to me, this is all about like not properly educating the Academy voters on the differences between these two things.
Well, I will always think one of the biggest problems with the Academy is a majority of the people voting are actors.
Yeah, and they don't know. They don't know. Like, they don't understand the technicalness of what's being voted on.
Yeah. And I think when you understand that the larger percentage is actors and producers and sometimes even critics, you start to understand what films win certain categories.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to understand why La La Land and The Artist do so well when it's such a like we love you, actors.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just you start understanding kind of like where their mindsets are and how they get so high up in the running. I really wish the Academy was opened up to much more people around the country in terms of voting, and much more departments and like people that, you know, have a different respect for much different aspects of filmmaking.
Yeah.
The fact that we still don't have stunts, you know, like that seems like a no fucking brainer.
I mean, to be honest with you, too, I also look at something like visual effects, and a lot of the time, a lot of the stuff that tends to win visual effects,
it's the most noticeable.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure.
It's like makeup.
Yeah. But then I think about, like, visual effects from, if you look at something like, what was it, First Man winning over, I think it was Avengers in Infinity War or something. I don't remember exactly. But you look at, like, oh, we're going to give this award to something like First Man because the visual effects disappear into the screen. I'm like, yeah, but look at the fucking volume and the quality of the visual effects in something like Avengers Infinity War. Like, sometimes
it's a lack of respect and understanding.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, who's making this fucking like, how are you judging what's a better visual effect? And it's like a little frustrating sometimes when I think of like, I don't disagree that the visual effects in First Man were really fucking good. But I also think about the amount of people and the volume of visual effects in something like Endgame.
Yeah.
And the fact of how much of it goes unnoticed. Like, a lot of the sequences, there's a whole sequence in Infinity War when Doctor Strange and Thanos first meet Ebony Maw and they're walking through the street. All of that is fucking CG. It's all green screen everywhere. But it looks like a real street, so you never question. I'm like, man, a lot of like the really big volume of visual effects goes completely like,
I think something that starts to hurt some of these movies too. I think of Thor Ragnarok, for instance.
Yeah.
And how, because these big movies from Marvel are hiring hundreds of VFX teams from around the world.
Yeah.
And some portions of the budget get allocated much higher to certain teams because they're having to set shots on a like priority basis.
Yeah.
That people will remember one bad CG scene and forget. You know, it's like you remember.
Look at Black Panther.
Yeah.
The ending fight sequence, everybody's like, oh, the visual effects in that movie was trash. It's like, there was a whole other 2-hour movie that happened before
exactly.
that.
Exactly. And I always think about Ragnarok and how their VFX in that movie that I think are some of the best Marvel has done from a like awe-inspiring standpoint. Just fucking art.
Yeah.
And then there's the scene on the bluffs, you know, on the cliffside. That's just some of the worst comping I've seen in a Marvel movie.
And that one thing will like.
But that was very clearly a reshoot, done super fast. But that like taints people's perception of VFX for the whole film.
Yeah.
And you're like, remember the fucking Valkyrie? Yeah. You know, like,
remember
holy
that one
shit.
painting that they put in that movie?
Yeah, like, what the fuck?
You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's all fake. Yeah, so I don't know. It's very, very frustrating. There was also a really good Q&A that's on The Hollywood Reporter. That's with the CEO and president of the Academy. And one of the questions that they did ask was, what prevents you from getting 5,000 submissions this year? Given that there will probably be fewer distinguished films in the running, why wouldn't every Lifetime and Netflix movie that was originally intended for TV now enter the Oscar competition? And they say the Oscars require films that were meant for theatrical exhibition. That is the core heartbeat of the Academy, that your intention was to make a theatrically released film. This year we'll look at the schedules that we already had for theatrical releases and also contracts. When you make a film, you make it under the theatrical rules of the DGA and your non-union.
This is just lobbyists. This is just fucking lobbying. This is an example of how your fucking government works. To be completely honest with you, this
is super interesting. What is the most important to know about the consolidation of sound design and sound mixing into one Best Sound Oscar? It was suggested that the idea originated in the Academy's sound branch. This 100% came out of requests from the sound branch, which worked very hard to bring this to the forefront after reviewing a long history of overlap in the recipients and the films that they worked on across the 2 award categories. Which I do get. I mean, sometimes, yeah. I think it was like Interstellar won for sound mixing and sound design. I mean, is that a bad thing?
I don't know.
You know, like
I'd be interested to look into that.
I don't know.
But to me, like, this feels like lobbying across the board, and I wonder how much longer the Academy is going to be able to get away with this. Because filmmakers are going to continue to start making award-winning shit on streaming services only.
Oh, yeah.
That because it's
everyone was pissed that Beast of No Nation could not be considered for Academy because it was a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's going to continue to happen more and more.
Because filmmakers don't give a fuck. If
what their shit's seeing.
If Netflix comes to you and is like, we're going to give you money to fund this project that no one in Hollywood would ever give you a chance to do, they're going to say, yes, let's do it.
For sure.
The Academy has to adapt.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think I think a lot of these studios also, if they're all going to start having streaming services, then you're going to see a huge influx of big creators going to things like HBO Max and Peacock and just all these different things. Like, it's an inevitability. Just embrace it.
Yeah. But then again, I start to wonder, like, is the Academy something that becomes less and less relevant every year and is kind of like a lot of Hollywood in that it's very self-serving and it's for itself?
I mean, I think the ratings answer that question.
Yeah. I mean, people are just kind of like...
People don't watch it as much.
Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
And I think especially younger audiences, and we talk about this a lot in terms of like how young people go to movies and what drives young people to theaters now when such a primary source of how they consume content is on streaming services and YouTube and TikTok and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what drives young people, and as people age out of that group, like do they give a shit? Do they really care at all about the Academy and their choices?
No, not at all.
I'd be interested to see in the last couple of years how big of a boost came from winning Best Picture. And it's a tough one because I feel like it's a chicken or an egg thing. Does it get a boost from winning Best Picture, or does it get a boost because it won Best Picture? That meant that theaters put it back in theaters, and then it got a boost because it was back in theaters. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and even if like Moonlight winning Best Picture and then being in the theaters after that, did that help or did it not help? I
would say in the case of Moonlight, it probably did because it was such a underrepresented movie.
Underdog,
yeah, it was an underdog.
Yeah,
I'd be more curious about some of the bigger winners that you expected to win and that had good theatrical runs.
Yeah, or like Shape of Water. Like, how much better did that help Guillermo in the long run? I don't know. Lots of like interesting things.
We just got a tip from Kiwi Pigman that said early support for Malika plays Final Fantasy VII-R. Get Adam and Zach off screen. It's almost time for Malika.
Okay.
And on that note,
Bye-bye.
It is time for Malika, and it is Malika Appreciation Day. You better show her some respect. Respect!
Respect. Respect.
Let's do it!